Also the scene where Anakin tells Yoda of his dream, they use shadows and the light coming in, and they use very stressful editing with it dictating the rhythm of the scene, and the camera zooms in on Anakin when he gets the news he has to let go, and he is afraid to lose. So in short, there are no plot inconsistencies, and the dialogue is actually realistic, being appropriately serious and the awkward for teenage romance. The technicals of the film are great as well, but Plinkett said the biggest problem with these films fail to relate to people, which, one, is argumentum, which means his review of Star Trek First Contact, a film loved by almost all critics, Star Trek fans, and even a large general audience, is wrong. It related to people using argumentum and basically means you condemn individual thinking as well as self-expression, taking risk and creativity, all crucial aspects of art. 2. You criticize this for not being art. You say this is commercial diarrhea. But the reason this would not be art is because it just has mindless action. But at the same time, it doesn't have enough action, meaning they aren't just big video games, and the films tackle many different subject matters of politics, spirituality, and love. They are full of political allegory. RedltterMedia doesn't even get, as he never read any of the books. Any books, spiritual allegory, he doesn't even get, as he doesn't get the idea behind the celibacy, and they are full of scenes of characters just talking. He calls these movies sellout films, but he criticizes them for not being basic, commercially sound things, like having Episode 1 have a teenager, exciting protagonist the teenage crowds like. The first film didn't star a teenager and didn't follow a conventional structure. It wanted to introduce Anakin as a secondary character, slowly making him more important. It made Episodes 2 and 3 about him, and Obi-Wan like how Prince of Egypt is about two brothers, so these films aren't structured just as commercial films. And they do have a reason for being made. They are about something, about how democracy dies, because we willingly give it up, as we see with Palpatine being applauded when he starts the Empire, the way Hitler was applauded, as we see most tyrannical governments are based around the false promises. As Anakin kills people with Palpatine, declares the Galactic Empire, and we see the system fails as the Senate acts out their own selfish interest, as they support Palpatine out of fear for instability, and we see often wars are a symbol of unwillingness to stand for hard to protect morals. As Padme said, the war represents an unwillingness to listen. Also it comments on pragmatism, the same way the Jedi betrayed the people in the last film, lying about the clones to the Senate along with Palpatine. Here they want to take over and even kill, which violates Jedi rules, and they mistreat Anakin, forcing him to spy on a friend, and this backfires, ending in their prosecution. And also this ties into the theme of fear. Anakin gives into fear even more in this film. This film really brings all the themes of the series to fruition. Anakin is told he should distance himself from what he is afraid to lose, as a death is a natural part of life. And rejoicing with the Force is nice. His fear leads to jealousy and greed of losing Padme, to the point he is interested in joining the dark side. And then kills Windu, and out of fear and guilt causes him to permanently fall. He also is afraid of being excluded, and as a result only gets more into conflict with the Jedi. It is what they are calling self-fulfilling prophecy, which is in fact made literal by Anakin having premonitions of Padme dying. He joins the dark side for this, and as a result chokes her, which along with a broken heart kills her. And the Jedi, like in the last film, act out of fear with how they treat Anakin. So these aren't meant to just be mainstream films. They analyze many deep themes like corruption, fear, pain, and pragmatism, which actually inspire the Dark Knight trilogy very strongly, so judging them on mainstream appeal is wrong. 2. Also, the idea that these films will be commercial films, as they have a lot of action, is wrong. It is a deep tragedy, emerging elements with fun blockbuster action, again, like the Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter movies, which also have politics, hardcore violence, slow talk scenes, and love stories for the women, as love serves the personal and political tragedy the same way the action does. And Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter had candy humor also, and before you say the humor was more subtle and dark, 1. Jar Jar and the kid stuff is only in the optimistic Episode 1. 2. Check the nostalgia critics' comments on Gimli and Legolas in his top 11 dumbest Lord of the Rings moments, or just watch any scene from Harry Potter. No, the humor there was very childish also. I mean, Harry Potter the Sorcerer's Stone had a theme centered on death, and starred a little kid even, who dealt with his parents' death, burns a guy's face off, and at the same time visits a bank of trolls and vomits a snitch and deals with talking letters. And they got a lot of action, and eventually romance in the later films too. There are films in which there is a lot more murder and still a fun fantasy slapstick. 3. He opens up his review pointing out the film got great reviews and episodes 1 and 2 still were giant box office hits, which, if we are judging this as entertainment, is the most important. And if we are judging it based on its appeal to fans, this related to a whole new generation of supposed mindless action junkies. Also, both films have okay to do good ratings on IMDb, and the critics and audience ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. They aren't universally hated. A big group of old school fans hate them. 4. Just because people didn't get the themes in these films don't make them bad. 5. The complaint is the films don't have a one-character formula, but this only means the films are all the more unconventional original, and the romance would be too cliché right, so appreciate something more complex, and that the characters will be dull like Padme and Obi-Wan in this. Well, like in the last two films, they are serious and dramatic, but they do have a lot of development, and Obi-Wan is even witty and cocky in this, but that will just make him dumb. Really make up your mind. But let's look at the romance, supporting characters, and character-driven themes in this. Obi-Wan is a happier mentor, more supportive, jokey, and fair, giving Anakin the credit he deserves. He is courageous and protective, yet still critical of Anakin and not outspoken against the Council's hardness even enough. And Anakin turns evil, and at the end he is honest, admitting he failed Anakin, and also sad, and disappointed, and angry, and confrontive. Yet he becomes the old Ben we knew, realizing his mistakes and becoming more hopeful and calm. And he will be trained by Qui-Gon, who's teaching a lot like old Obi-Wan's. He will become more free-minded, and that Matthew and RedltterMedia don't appreciate. That twist only shows how they never got the characterization in these films. Qui-Gon thoughts in the moment and focused on love, and this is how he became a Force ghost. He taught this to Yoda and Obi-Wan, who would be wiser in the original trilogy. And there is nothing wrong with there being a last-minute reveal. The Sixth Sense has ended up with him being a ghost. Spoiler alert, by the way. And Deathly Hallows Part 2 only at the end reveals the Elder Wand belonged to Harry. Also, RedltterMedia complains murder man lead this tactic. Isn't that more of a strike at Return of the Jedi? Also, that is a theme from this film, carrying on from the first film, that you should think for yourself and stand up for what is right, as Obi-Wan doesn't do with Anakin. He only listens to the Council and their pressure and blames Anakin for being close to Padme, defending the Council's position, even though he admits to the Jedi Anakin has never let him down and also saw Anakin was a great friend in the opening. Yet he tells Anakin that he was just asking his name of the Council if he can spy on a friend, and he accepts Anakin not being sent with him to Utapu, leaving him to feel rejected and be more manipulated. In the end, he has to admit he failed as a master. Yet sometimes we have to accept advice. The flip side of the coin is Anakin should have listened to Yoda, and Windu telling him to not give in to fear, and Padme telling him to remain good, because this way he loses his friends. Also, Padme isn't bland either. She loves to become a mother, is optimistic and comforting to Anakin, means to be honest in their relationship, but is worried of when people find out she is married to Anakin. She is very sad when she thinks Anakin is feeling bad, and she also grows to see sometimes war is unnecessary, and that people use violence and propaganda to seize power, and discovers Palpatine, her old mentor, is corrupt. And also she is overwhelmed and shocked by the fact that Anakin has turned evil, and she at first goes into denial, then becomes angry and is stern, like Luke, refusing to turn evil. But she isn't as strong as Luke and becomes so sad she loses the will to live. And Matthew said this is unlikable of her, and as she had 2 kids, but she did love them and gave them up to good people. And as sad as she was living for them, wouldn't have meant she would have been a good mother. Also, you can die from depression. This actually happened to Philip V. from Macedon. And also, she had been choked and was giving birth, and didn't die from a broken heart when Anakin killed the sad people, as they are not sentient. This film really completes the theme of love. It shows following your feelings can be good, but that becomes too attached can make you possessive like Anakin, or just totally depressed like Padme, and that honestly is important. Anakin doesn't share his pain of turning evil with her, and it turns out that is what kills her, and it shows that with Padme failing to pursue Anakin, that listening to our loved one is important, as they truly know us. Also, Matthew, in his review of the Clone Wars, said the characters were empty in Episode 3, showing Palpatine. How is Palpatine an empty character? And how more than the Emperor in the original trilogy? He's seductive, manipulative, methodical, sadistic, power-hungry, cruel, oppressive, hypocritical, vengeful, and we subtly learn, based on how important the story of Sith is, that he is trained by the powerful Sith Master who could save people from dying, and that he murdered him to keep the secret for himself, murdering the man who could cheat death. We very subtly get to know his backstory. Mace Windu is deepened and is further as well being shown to be distrustful, pragmatic, cruel, and harsh, and also worried and authoritative. So the film really had a complex, smart story, deep themes, and characterization. Its characters weren't bland, and it was about something. And 6. It is ironic that The Dark Knight Rises as well tried to show it is people's willingness to side with corruption that causes society to fall, really showing these films are in the realm of sophisticated cinema, and the people didn't get it in that film either. Yes, the people in Gotham were stupid, willfully stupid, greedy, vengeful, and pragmatic. That is the whole point of that film, and this one, and is how Hitler came to power. He was elected, and that is how many people supported communist revolutions. So he complains that Star Wars was about the people and characters. Well, so are these films, as well as about complex stories and deeper subject matter. 8. He said we like those characters. Well, again, this is subjective. The characters in these films are deep as well. They are just serious. They're dramatic, not witty and exciting, and it isn't your taste that it is your problem. And it shows that actually it is hypocritical to accuse prequel fans of not being sophisticated enough. Not liking serious characters is unsophisticated. It is similar to how people don't like the James Bond or Batman reboots because the characters are dark and brooding. But those are great films, and also have complex stories, political themes, and at the same time action, comedy, and romance. 9. He complains Lucas sucked all the excitement out of Star Wars. It is still action-packed and fantasy-filled. It is just dark and dramatic like more modern films are, and as you showed in your review of this Star Trek reboot, that isn't the approach of a sellout. 10. He said the original films had a richness to them and they feel more real. Okay, so romance being awkward, teenagers whining, and the spiritual monks serious, and our republic becoming a dictatorship who inside corruption isn't real. 11. Then he does more argumentum, saying no one with the exception of all the fans that do like the prequels must to the new generation you call unsophisticated for liking serious characters. Or remember anything in the prequels? Well, I think they have plenty of memorable moments, as Anakin was very deep, and seeing him lose his mother when he is alone and stressed as a younger teenager, and when his biggest fear was death, and he dreamed to see her again since he was a kid. And for the first time being vengeful, killing all the Sand People while he was a Jedi, and then confessing this to Padme and her underestimating it because she is a motherly figure, all this was memorable. And also that he still defended Obi-Wan from Dooku, and then in Episode 3 he is going to die with him on Grievous's ship, and that he later admits to Obi-Wan he was arrogant as he is trying to be a good student, but later smiles awkwardly as he learned that the dark side can help, but also that he almost cries when he discovers Palpatine is a Sith Lord because his father figure, well, he never had a real father, turns out to be evil. Well, the Jedi don't accept him, and he needs his help, yet is angry at him, but almost kills him because he is a loyal Jedi to the Jedi. And that Anakin hesitates to kill Dooku, even when Dooku almost killed Padme and Obi-Wan had chopped his arm off. Or that Obi-Wan is worried about Anakin going off on his own as he is too stern and protective. While then in the first film, opposite from how he is in A New Hope, is very orthodox and strictly follows the Council and doesn't want Qui-Gon to go against the Council, but Qui-Gon Jinn simply said he will do what he must and goes and does the right thing. Or that Obi-Wan in Episode 2 tries hard to be a good mentor and comforts Anakin on the nightmares of his mother, and Anakin, as a cocky male teenager, just nods as he is clearly afraid to be vulnerable. Or the part where Obi-Wan decides to stand up against Yoda as he is loyal to Qui-Gon and wants to fulfill his last wish, or the scene where Anakin's mom sees how talented he is and realizes she has to let him go, or the scene where Palpatine takes over under thunderous applause, shattering all Padme's belief in democracy, at the part where Palpatine becomes Chancellor by using the innocent Padme using her responsibility for people to have her turn against Valium, and also see people throwing around the droid factories no different from the slapstick in the original trilogy, and so there are many memorable moments as they had emotional or philosophical depth.